they had hired Mr. Paul Bateman that had retired from the University of Illinois.
One more angel. Now listen to this.
That they and because he had taught a lot of the engineers, or they had been in his classes at University of Illinois, and because they'd been in his class, they invited him up for the introduction of the finger pickup. Well, after he came back home, he wanted to come down and meet me, and so we visited every year after that. We just visited, and they hired him for 3 years to do field work behind their Maximerge planters, to check on the seed depth, the seed spacing, the emergence, and how many the stalk count and the yield it was in all different kinds of
and the ear size,
everything.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, what he started telling me, it blew my mind, because I'd always thought that the stalk count after you planted, whether it was 3 weeks or a month later, is all you was looking for.
If they come up 3 weeks, you sometimes down here in these dry clods we'd have to wait 3 weeks.
So he
it didn't matter if I finally got a stand, and
so
happy.
So he started giving me all this information, and it never was published, this, because it was John Deere and Mr. Bateman's. He had a whole room full of data. And when John Deere got it, I guess it went in a drawer because it wasn't favorable. Just a quarter of an inch difference in seed depth could make a difference between nubbing or a small size ear. I forgot what the yield was different, but there could be a 25% yield reduction if you didn't have the right germination, coming up. It's supposed to come up, it's supposed to really germinate, I think I've been told, within 48 hours of each other, the germination period. And I thought, goodness gracious, this is hard to believe, but I knew. You have the data. They're showing the yields.
Guess what happened next? In May of 1993, he shows up at my house with a bunch of steel cable. Like you...
I've got one of them on the wall in there now.
And a roll of duct tape. And he wants to put this stuff on my planter. Well, my son, the planter operator, he's not into inventions, but he allows it. And it goes great. The first day we've been able to plant, I told him the night before when he said he's coming, and I said, and I've got an idea of how we can close that mud back over it. It was May the 25th, and we hadn't planted over the rain. So we taper up. Eugene tapes on these things, and he gets them down in the ground, and I put some old road cleaner wheels on the back, and away we go. We're just living happily ever after. And you took some to Greg.
That fall.
Steel cables.
That fall.
Was that plastic or steel?
Steel.
More steel.
It was the same.
We went that summer to Vince, and we drug that cable over it, and it had a few seed in the hopper, and all we wanted to see was if it was pushing them down. Well, lo and behold, it did not rain. It was down in July. There was a little moisture in the ground. We come back by in about a week, and here's a complete stand of soybeans without the furrow closed, without a rain, just because they'd been pushed down in that moisture.
Howard said, this beats anything I ever saw. He said, all you need is a cedar brush behind this thing. Because that's when it convinced me that if you can get the seed down to the bottom of the seed trench, the moisture is going to come up every night to that.
Mm-hmm. It does, and actually there's some scientific research.
But most of seed never get to the bottom of the trench. If it rains within 2 or 3 days and everything, it can, but the seed depth, I think, still makes a real critical difference in there, because they say it's kind of like, maybe it's Greg Souders or that, but anyway, it's kind of like a runt pig. That healthy stalk is going to take the nutrients from the weaker stalk. But Howard and I worked out there, and I guess people thought, well, that's two nuts over there in that field, you know, going out there and coming back and going back. And Howard worked on different configurations